It's July 2016 and I'm going to give you guys a tour of my permaculture site. I'm going to follow a very similar path that I followed last year and the years before, so that way you can get a good idea of what's changed, what's worked, what's not working. I'm standing right here at the top of the property. This is the Zone 4 farm forestry, so we've got a lot of, so basically it's a timber forest with species that are mimicking what you'd find in my locale, which is eastern Pennsylvania. So this July and a good part of June, we've really been in a drought. So I don't think I've seen a time since I've been here that it's been this dry. So this will be, it'll be good to see what the property looks like in drought conditions. So you'll notice that a lot of the nitrogen fixers, black locust especially, has done really well. That stuff is just shot up. So you also notice that the understory, all the grass is really dry. And that's obviously due to the drought, but the trees have done pretty well. Now what I'll do is I'll come through here in the early spring and cut these nitrogen fixers to head height to force nitrogen into the soil to help out the productive trees that are in between them. Another thing I wanted to mention is that this Zone 4 area, the trees have grown large enough that I'm no longer coming in here and doing any sort of mowing in between the tree rows or any sort of weeding. I've actually done absolutely zero this entire season up here. So I might come up here and maybe cut a little bit of this thistleback at some point, but other than that, I've done absolutely zero. So once you get to a point where in your outer zones, once the trees are established above the weed line, you really don't have to do too much. So I'm still at the top of the property. This is the top swale is right here, where you see everything is looking a little bit more green. Beyond Zone 4, you'll see the Zone 5 area, which is just on the edges of the fence there. And again, you know, Zone 5, you're not doing any maintenance whatsoever. So that's just this top area, the top couple of acres. I run the chickens between the swales. So you can kind of see the chickens were here in this area probably, I guess, maybe a couple months ago. And I've sort of selectively let some trees start to grow, stuff that I didn't plant. Obviously we got black locust and mulberry, so mulberry especially, very chicken friendly tree. So I'm sort of letting some of these things grow up because the trees, because the chickens really like having trees in their paddocks. So they actually won't, the area is big enough that they won't see this area again until next year. So they'll make their rounds once a year. And the nice thing is, because we're on a slope here, all the fertility from the chickens washes down into the swales and helps to feed the trees. Here's swale number 2 and swale number 3. The trees are definitely getting bigger on the swales, and I haven't watered anything, so, and I haven't lost any of the established trees. Kind of like this corner here. My neighbors have a really mature Concord grapevine, and we reap some of the benefits. This is the paddock where the chickens just came from. You can see a bunch of raspberries along the fence there, and they just wrecked it. And it didn't take long. I mean, they were there for a week, and they're here now, and tomorrow we're due to move them. So as you can see, they've wrecked this area too. It doesn't help without the rain. They're definitely knocking down the vegetation pretty quick. So there's a couple of small mulberry trees in this particular paddock, but they definitely like to hang out underneath the trees and in the shade. So especially in the summer, I mean, if you're going to be doing paddock shift, the chickens don't really like just open pasture with no trees. One thing we're doing a little bit different with the chickens this year is I got a different watering bucket. It's a heated bucket, so we can use it in the winter. But I'm using it all year because first of all, we don't have to hang it off the coop. I don't like hanging heavy things off the coop. I just don't want to break anything. But the nice thing about the way this bucket works is it has a little lip. It has a little lip for the water. So when they put their little beaks in there, the water stays. So you're not getting all the water that is just dripping on the ground. So they're able to get, excuse me guys, excuse me. So they're able to get a better drink of water, and we're wasting a lot less water. This is my neighbor's, he's got a nice food forest on swales. He's got some nice top bar beehives going here. You kind of see he just built that clothesline, which is really nice too. The bees have been really positive this year. This hive right here, this shorter hive, is actually a swarm that my neighbor and I caught from this other hive here. Actually swarmed and they all congregated in that pear tree. And so we caught them and then moved them to this hive here, and they've settled in nicely. They've already built out 2 boxes, and I think they'll probably make it through the winter. The other 2 hives have done really well too. So we've both those have kicked off swarms this year, and one of the swarms went to my neighbor, and the other one went here, and we were able to harvest in the spring. So it's been really nice. The bees have done fantastic. And I think a good part of that is having the pond nearby, but also the having all the forage. We've had a tremendous amount of flowers, especially earlier in the spring. The wildflower meadow was really blooming well. It's petered out now with the drought, but I think we got a lot of the bees got a lot of nectar and honey. So this area actually had all my wood chips. So I used up the pile of wood chips here, and then I literally just came through and made little furrows and planted a bunch of seed in the ground and covered it back up with wood chips, and haven't watered once. And I mean, it's done. I mean, it's not a great garden, but it's done pretty well considering I've put zero effort into it. We've got it's basically a Three Sisters garden of corn, beans, and squash. This is the 4th swale down, overlooking down to another swale, and then beyond that is the hugelkultur berms. And then there's food forestry just beyond the pond down there. Just look at the pond here. Bees like the pond. They come in here and haul their water. And frogs, a tremendous amount of frogs. So here's the Zone 2 food forestry. Now these trees have done fine, no casualties. They're not quite as large as the ones that are grown directly on the swale, but lots of plums in here, mulberries, persimmons, pawpaws, elderberry, stuff like that. Basically native stuff that I don't really do much at all through here. Occasionally I come through here and do a little weeding, but other than that, I mean, these trees get very little care. I say Zone 2, it might be more like Zone 3 out here. So here's the hugelkultur berms. They've grown up nicely. We've had a lot of yarrow that has taken up residence here, which is a great nutrient accumulator, great for bringing in the pollinators and the predator insects. I put in some trees, and some of the trees that I grew from seed have come in. So we've got hardy figs, and we've got pears and apples and currants and quite a few other. I think we have persimmons in here. There's quite a few different things in here. Everything is still small and relatively young. But I come through here. I don't do a lot of maintenance, but I do come through here and weed and make sure that the little trees aren't getting overtaken by the herbaceous plants at this point. So there's more Zone 3 food forestry right here. And then on the other side, same deal. There's a pawpaw that's done nicely. This last bottom area here, this is the bottom swale. It's kind of an open type swale. It goes across the driveway here, which I'm basically running the water with a little speed bump almost. And then this is the bottom swale. Now it's all grown in, so it's hard to tell, but there's a pretty large ditch in there, and then there's the berm here, and below the berm here, where you see all the vegetation, that's the wildflower meadow. And there's a little bit of meadow above us too, but the majority of it's just the bottom lands here. So at the bottom of the property, sort of near the road, we have zone 4 farm forestry. So again, we got a timber forest, and here like the top of the property, I've done nothing, and the trees are getting bigger. Eventually they'll provide the wind breaking that we need. We get a lot of wind from the west over here, and along the fence here, I've been growing bamboo. This is year 3 for the bamboo. Now the bamboo likes a lot of moisture, so its leaves are starting to curl a little bit, but if you remember last year, the bamboo was pretty small. Now we've got a pretty good stand of bamboo along this fence. Some of it's even above the fence at this point. This is the bottom swale here. It's the ditch side. Then here's the berm side. So here we've got a lot of native type fruit trees and nitrogen fixers, and below the swale and the berm with the trees is we have a wildflower meadow. Now the meadow is done really well this year, and I think it's a big reason why the bees have done so well. At this point in the year, the flowers are starting to sort of close up. It's been so dry. Earlier in the day, you'll see a lot of the chicory, like all this chicory has closed up for the day, but early in the morning you'll see a sea of blue, which is nice. So, but this gives you an idea of what's going on here with swales. The trees are just getting bigger and bigger, despite the lack of rain. The trees have all done well. Haven't had anything die. So this is the wildflower meadow, a little bit more up close. You can see a lot of black-eyed Susan. We had a huge echinacea in there. We've had a huge variety of stuff that's come and gone. So here we're still at the bottom swale here. And I mow just a pathway along the swale here to be able to access the trees. I'm going to walk up over the berm here. And this wall here in front of us, that's the pond wall with a feature fish pond. If you look down here, you can kind of see it gives you a better view of the ditch and the swale. On the pond wall, I've planted a lot of bamboo. It has shallow root systems, so no worries about it causing a problem. This is one of my favorite parts of the property. I'm actually walking on the spillway here. So the spillway comes around the wall here, and water comes down through here, but kind of made a nice little area through here. A lot of berries have grown on their own. So we got a nice stand of blackberries here. There's also been black raspberries, which we picked from this spring, which was nice. These are almost ready. Not bad, actually really good. So this is we're right up to this is the spillway here. See, we're not spilling at the moment. We're still pretty relatively high with the water level. But basically the water would come right through here, spill through here and around the corner and hit that bottom swale. So come walk over the spillway, and here's the pond. And I basically just kind of mow a path on the pond wall. That way I can walk through here, and the only maintenance I really do is I probably will cut back some of the cattails just to allow access to to be able to harvest some fish. So the way I'm going to do that is at the end of the summer, probably in the next few weeks or so, I'll come in and cut back the cattails beneath the water level, and when you do that, it'll kill them. So the idea is I don't want to remove all the cattails because they're keeping my pond from being an algae, bloom, and so I do want to have the cattails, but I don't want to have a situation where it's the shoreline is totally overtaken and I can't do any harvesting. So here's some lily pads. lotus flower, really nice. We haven't had any floating fish, so the fish, they must be in there and they must be growing. Now granted, they're probably growing slow because I don't actually feed them. I guess just gives you a view from top of the pond wall here. This would be more like zone 2 food forestry. So we've got like apricots and sea berries and beach plums and wolfberry and high bush cranberry, things like that. Now the graywater wetland, I've been sort of disappointed with the plants have grown. The irises have done better than the grasses, but I don't think that it's sufficient to filter the water yet. So I probably need to put some more plants in there and try to establish a healthier ecosystem there before I start dumping the gray water from our house into the pond. Anyway, so the way it works is there's a French drain that's behind the house here, and then it connects to a swale here, which will run to this silt pond, and then the silt pond overflows into the feature pond, which also is connected to a swale. And then of course the feature pond overflows into the bottom swale. And then everything on the other side of the property that goes through all the swales actually also ends up in that bottom swale. So there's actually a good chunk of strawberries around the silt pond, which has been nice. You can see the plums. We probably have a few plums that probably need to be harvested. You'll see that the leaves are white. I'm still using a kale and clay to try to keep the fruit protected, which works okay. Here's more zone 2 food forestry. So Asian pear trees, gumi, apricots, and nectarines, and pawpaws, and just a whole bunch of this big kiwi vine that's working there. Herb garden's doing okay. You can see some nice echinacea, and calendula, thyme, and rosemary, and oregano, and dill, and lemon balm, and mint, and sage. It's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And I haven't watered this once this year. This is my compost tea setup, which I was using in the early spring, which really actually I thought worked pretty well. So half of my zone 1 garden is sort of like a zone 1 annual garden mixed with food forestry and also herbs. So it's sort of a hodgepodge of just a bunch of herbs and annuals that I'll fit in where I can fit in. So I put a lot of my broccoli, I put some onions in here, and then I mixed in a lot of small trees and shrubs. And then in the backdrop, we've got my zone 2 food forestry, so a little bit bigger. The apples and cherries, and there's jujube and shipova. And our raspberries have done really well. There's apricot, and gumi, and honeyberry, and gooseberry, and currants. Now the opposite side of the garden, I transitioned back to like a wood chip style annual garden. So the nice thing is I think the annual garden with wood chips has been much more productive than the living mulch style of garden that I have on the other side. Now I like the living mulch style of garden on the other side because I'm mixing in the perennial shrubs and trees, and so it makes sense. But when I'm doing straight annuals, I like the wood chip style garden, and that's done really nicely. And I transitioned it with basically just using a black tarp and sort of killing out the living mulch that I had, and then just transitioning back to wood chips, and things have done really, really well here. I have actually watered a couple times here, but the wood chips really help to keep the moisture in. And you'll see a little bit of white on the eggplant. I use a diatomaceous earth. I get flea beetles pretty bad, and I found that diatomaceous earth is the only thing I can really do to sort of keep them at bay, at least long enough. I mean, you still get damage, but yeah, I still get a tremendous amount of eggplant along with that. Tomatoes, the onions are definitely ready to, as soon as they start flopping over like that, they're ready to harvest. We've got a ton of onions. Probably should do that today. And then I've got a new tarp here. The tarp here is laid. That'll be my fall garden here, and that'll be putting in here in the next couple weeks. And this area here, this is the chicken area, one of the chicken areas, and it's sort of like it's a victory garden. So this is the half that the chickens were on last year, and I've got chickens on the upper part here. And so this has been mostly some corn, beans, and squash, but a lot of melons in through here, and you know, that's done fairly well. And mulberries for the chickens here. This is the upper part of the property. This upper part is between these two swales is where we run the chickens. This is the east side of the property. This is a view of the front side of the property. So pond, zone 1 garden.